Hello and welcome to the Oregonian Sports Podcast. I am Bill Oram, joined by Brenna Greene of Coin 6. And after a brief hiatus, we're back.
Like Brenna, anybody noticed.
Brenna, you know who else is back?
Ooh, what a great segue. Great job.
I've been working on my broadcasting skills.
Oh, okay.
Good work. Been reading up on it, watching YouTube videos. The answer is Chauncey Billups, the head coach of the Portland Trailblazers, signed a multi-year extension to remain with the team. Aaron Fentress, Blazers reporter for the Oregonian, reports that contract extension will keep him in Portland through 2028. So 3 more years for Chauncey Billups' guaranteed deal. Brenna, we've talked ad nauseum about the if, should, could, would, will, may, the Blazers extend Chauncey Billups. Now that we know they have, what was your reaction, and what do you think the Blazers do moving forward?
I do find it really interesting when the whole league is zagging, which means like everyone's just getting fired at the drop of a dime. I mean, it happened again last night with the Sacramento Kings GM getting fired immediately after they lost that game. And the Blazers have decided, I guess everybody's zigging. The Blazers have decided to zag. And bring
Brenna
back both.
Zag a drink.
Okay. It's a turn of phrase, all right? So oh, good Lord. Good Lord. I wasn't even trying. Okay? I do find it very interesting that in a league where everybody's getting fired every 5 seconds, the Blazers have gone the completely opposite direction and brought back both people.
Yeah.
I find it one of those decisions where, and I think that this is generally what I think a lot of people kind of feel like, it really could have gone either way, and I wouldn't have minded either way.
I think that's fair.
You know, like, if they would have gotten rid of him, I would have been like, yeah, makes sense. Like, yes, the second half of this season has been good, but is that enough to get away from 3 years of mediocrity? Which, as we've discussed, were not all Chauncey's fault. But, also, like, you have to think about it, and this was not Joe Cronin's hire. But when you hire somebody with only 1 year of assistant coaching experience in the NBA, what exactly do you expect?
Wasn't it interesting how candid Chauncey was in his press conference on Sunday morning about how much he had to learn when he stepped into this job, and how he was like, it was interesting the way he talked about where he was on his coaching journey when he started, because I think he said something to the effect, I'd have to go back and look at the quotes, but like, I was in no way ready for this.
Yeah.
Which I think Blazer fans were feeling when he started coaching. And, I think that that's the sort of thing that is like very self-aware and sort of natural, right? When you're new at something, when you've got 5 years of experience at something, you're going to be better than when you had 0 experience. Obviously, that's just human nature. But I was surprised that he was so candid about that, because his lack of experience was a huge sticking point upon his hire.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he's not shy about it. I mean, I even asked him, like, you could easily walked away from this as well and said, they didn't pick up my extension for this year or for next year, whatever. Like, I'm going to go. And he said, you know what? Like, they needed to learn things about me too. And he didn't say this, but it definitely sounded like he didn't begrudge anybody for not picking up that extra year. So, I think that he was, I mean, but that's just Chauncey. Like, I'll give him this. The guy normally doesn't really like hide behind things.
Right.
Which I appreciate, because there's a lot of coaches that just hide and hide and hide and hide and hide. And when that team has a bad game, normally he's pretty blunt with it. So I'll give him that. But yeah, I mean, I also understand the concept in bringing him back. Like, hey, finally things are kind of rolling. We have this young core that really seems to like Chauncey. Do we want to disrupt their growth right now when there's, you have, Tumani and Denny who love Chauncey. You have Scoot, who's, definitely had a huge year. You have this, I mean, not a huge year, but, a year of growth, a huge year of growth. That's what I mean. Do you want to disrupt that growth with bringing somebody else in? And sometimes disrupting is great because it's a different perspective. And other times disrupting is bad because it just doesn't work. So I can understand the reason why they stuck with it. Jury's out on if that's going to be the right decision or not. It's not a situation where I don't think anybody feels like this is a slam dunk, no duh thing. It's just not. So
I think Chauncey undeniably earned an extension, right? Like I think what he did was enough to extend, the growth of individual players, the fact that, they were able to, perform in the second half as well as they did. No real issues with keeping Chauncey based on like the merit of it. I'm very interested to see where this goes though, because I do think the Blazers are taking a pretty big risk. When you hire a new coach, you essentially signal that you are at the beginning of something. You are resetting your timeline a little bit. Not necessarily like, I mean, obviously like teams that have championship aspirations hire a new coach and expect to win right away. But like, it is just sort of like it's a little bit of a reset. And the Blazers are, rather than reset in any way, are saying we are completely on the right path and we're moving forward. And so it just feels like that is ramping up the pressure because you have to keep getting better. And I don't know how much better over the course of 82 games the Blazers will be if the growth is really expected to just be internal and kind of organic. I think it would be better for sure. But is this like a 500 team? And if so, where are you in the mix? Are you in the play-in? You're fighting for a play-in spot. You get a play-in game. And that would be better. And that would be something worth shooting for, of course. But it's like, is that enough to justify, signing off on sticking with the power structure as you have it? And because the elephant in the room here is that Chauncey is not a fan favorite, right? To put it mildly. There are a lot of fans who are completely out on Chauncey Billups and have been since day one. There's nothing that, that he could do to win them over. That, he's a Neil Olshey hire. He had the baggage of a sexual assault allegation from his playing days, never prosecuted, but, certainly something that, problematic for him and for a lot of people. And so, there's that. The team stunk for 3 years. Not his fault entirely that the team stunk. In fact, I'd say it's probably like 90% not his fault that the team stunk. You had injuries, health issues, and then you had tanking. So it just
and the Lillard and the Lillard trade,
and then the Lillard saga. So it's like, there's a lot going on that was outside of Chauncey's control as to why the team stunk.
Yeah.
This year when they, were willing to not tank, once things started clicking, like there was a lot to like. And the defensive identity of this team, the culture of this team, like all of that, like worth investing in. But when you have a coach who gets a contract extension at 8 a.m. and at noon is getting booed by a robust portion of the fans in the stands, which is what happened on Sunday, you have a disconnect. It is a disconnect that the franchise and the locker room has Chauncey's back, but the fan base doesn't. And so the question going forward is, how do you kind of heal that disconnect? How do you bridge it? Because it doesn't feel tenable to move forward with a coach that so much of the fan base dislikes. Hold on, let me check my notes here because I really want to nail this point. Unless
you wrote this down.
I did. Unless you win big and fast. Otherwise, you're setting expectations that you can't really live up to. And that's
winning is the only thing that cures this.
Totally. And if the Blazers are awesome next year, everybody takes another step organically. Maybe they balance the roster a little bit, maybe clear out some of the the poor fits. Well, hey, maybe we start feeling okay about Chauncey here in Portland, Oregon. I just don't think they're ready for that level of step. And I think it's as likely or more likely that the Blazers,
middle their way through next year.
Right. That they are that they don't take a big step forward. What if they take a step back? 36 wins was overachieving. What is Vegas going to set the over under for wins for the Blazers next year at?
Yeah.
I bet it's not 36. I bet it's 31 and a half, 32 and a half. And let's say the Blazers win 32 games next year. Well, you're sitting there, you've got a coach that's got 2 more years left on his contract, and you're just kind of like, well, what was that for? And that's where I kind of worry that the Blazers could have done more to sort of invigorate their situation if they'd looked elsewhere. But they're trusting in themselves, right? They're saying, we believe that we are ready to take that step or a step. We believe in Chauncey. And so they're betting on themselves, and they're saying to the fan base, trust us. And that's great. That's fine. It's just that I don't know that they have that cachet with the fan base right now. And so this is a big this is a big opportunity for the Blazers to prove to the city and to the league that they have known what they're doing, because a lot of the moves that they have made have raised eyebrows. Joe Cronin getting an extension, raised a lot of eyebrows around the league. Chauncey getting an extension, raised a lot of eyebrows. The Denny Advia trade, raised a lot of eyebrows. I think it continues to sort of justify itself, but I mean, that gets to the broader question of, was trading for Denny Advia to become a 36-win team a great choice when your strategy was to win 18 games and be in the mix for Cooper Flag? That's a philosophical discussion that I understand all sides of. But so the Blazers have been very unorthodox about a lot of things they've done. And if it works, they're going to look like geniuses. But a lot of people would tell you that they look a little unfocused right now. So I'm just curious to see what happens and where it goes, because it is a big, we are betting on ourselves and asking the fan base to trust us moment.
This is a huge summer in terms of trades, because just to be frank, you look around, this is not a team that has a lot of contracts up. You have Delano Banton and Jabari Walker. We're not clearing a lot of cap space there,
Right.
So they have to make moves by trade. And at this point, it's kind of, or get off the pot. We have been waiting and waiting.
They have to hit.
We have been waiting and waiting and waiting. And every time, it's like, oh, nope, not right this time. Oh, nope, not right this time. They can't do that anymore. The timeline's up. Because now by putting your these 2 people on contract extensions, they have to do something.
But so here's what I'd say. So our friend Sean Hyken over at the Rose Garden Report did write, I thought it was made an astute point on the risk of short circuiting this whole thing. And I wrote a little bit about it, but I thought Sean did a nice job of kind of laying out where the Blazers have done this in the past, where you get a little too high on your own supply, smelling your own stink, and you say, hey, we're going to go in around this group. We think Denny Advia, Tumani Kamara, and Shaden Sharp is our core. We think we've got our 3 guys to lead us into the promised land. And so you go overspend. So maybe you do trade DeAndre Ayton, but to get rid of DeAndre Ayton, you take on somebody else who you think is going to help you in the short term, but has a bad contract. And you end up getting, and it ends up being you're overly bought in. You're over indexing on how good this team was in the second half. And the risk of that. So that's where it's yes, I agree they have to do something, but that something has to be extremely strategic, and it has to thread a certain needle, because you're at a point now where it's okay, DeAndre Ayton, not a good fit for this team going forward. I've wanted him to be sent home for nearly a year now. Jeremy Grant regressed dramatically, is getting older. Is basically, Tumani Kamara and Denny Advia are the 2 forwards on this team. Where does Jeremy fit in? But he has 3 years left on his contract, and his value is not very high right now. So if, again, to trade him, you're probably having to attach assets to send him out, which is not a good place for a team that is rebuilding to be.
No.
And then that leads to The other one I'm not even Anthony Simons. Anthony Simons, also an expiring deal, probably has the most value, but what are you getting back? And so, because if you do nothing, which I think doesn't look good in the short term, and you do ride out DeAndre Ayton and you do ride out Anthony Simons, that's like $60 million coming off the books next year.
Yeah.
Which the Blazers are not going to be a free agent destination, but you can do a lot with cap space in terms of absorbing money in trades, in terms of taking back other teams' bad money and getting paid in terms of first round picks to do it. You can facilitate trades like you've seen the Jazz do to pick up assets. There's a lot you can do. So, I mean, having cap space isn't the worst thing for the Blazers to do. So now that I'm thinking this through, maybe what the Blazers...
Now you're thinking that they should just ride this one out.
Maybe what they should do is they should attach a little bit of draft capital to get off Jeremy Grant and get that long-term money off the books.
Yeah.
Use that to get some pieces that maybe balance the roster for the short term. And ride out Anthony and DA, and then use that cap space to get paid to take on some bad money, but you get better picks back than you sent out on Jeremy. Maybe there's something like that. Maybe you're playing a little bit of a long game on how you structure these things. I don't know. But the point is, yes, they need to do something, but not to a point where they over leverage themselves that they can't be nimble and continue to unwind things going forward. They don't want to get trapped in this moment where it's hey, we're pretty good, and we're pretty fun, and the fans like how we play defense. So now we are going to lock ourselves into being a 42-win team into perpetuity. Because I wrote last week, if being a 42-win team is good enough, and just being in the back end of the playoffs is good enough, well, then why did you ever break up the Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum tandem? Why did you ever, try to reinvent the wheel around Damian Lillard? Because if you were certainly good enough to win 45 games every year and occasionally 50 and win a playoff series here and there, if that's good enough, you shouldn't have broken up the band. But that's not good enough, and it shouldn't be good enough. You're trying to figure out how do you get to the mountaintop. That is the challenge.
I think we are in agreement that something has to be done with at least one of the players.
One of the ill-fitting veterans.
Yeah, in that lovely pot of players that do not fit the timeline. This summer, something's got to happen.
Right.
But I think we are also in agreement that you can't just go gangbusters over here. So.
And so that's where I would say, I actually do kind of appreciate the way the Blazers are doing this.
Yeah, it's been very calm.
But also
for a league that's completely uncalm.
But gradual, right?
Yes.
That they are building. And the NBA is such a reactionary league where there is so much, we don't like what happened on Monday, so on Tuesday we're going to make a change, and on Wednesday we're going to make another change. I mean, look what's happening in Phoenix. Matt Ishbia has fired 3 coaches in 3 years. I mean, he is paying tens of millions of dollars to coaches to go away. He's still paying Monty Williams, he's paying Frank Vogel, now he's paying Mike Budenholzer, and then he's going to be paying whoever comes next. A lot of people thought it was going to be Chauncey Billups.
Yeah.
That's just a man without a plan. You can quibble with Joe Cronin's plan, you can criticize Jody Allen for not being, an innovative, ambitious owner, maybe, but they do have a plan that they believe in. A lot of people don't see it, and that you can quibble with it, but they are saying, we believe that we are building this core out piece by piece, and then seeing what it can do. We believe we have the coach who can bring this team along. My fear with the Blazers is that they will gradually improve without ever taking a big swing.
Yeah.
And then you're going to end up in a point where it's wait a minute, they're paying Shaedon Sharpe how much to be pretty good on a only okay team? And then you have to pay Tumani Kamara in a couple of years to be what? Tumani Kamara should be your 4th or 5th best starter, on a good team. It's he shouldn't be your number 2 player, which is kind of how he felt in the second half of this year.
Yeah.
Denny Advia is on an amazing contract. He's under contract for 3 more years on a declining deal. So it's you're not going to pay him for a good long while. But you don't want to get expensive before you get good. So there is some urgency here, but you
The
don't want to
Blazers
rush the
have a
process.
specialty in doing that over the years.
Exactly. So I just think it's a fascinating situation, and I enjoy talking about it with people because I think that I kind of like a lot of what the Blazers have going for them. Like, I think it's becoming an enjoyable product. I think it's, the defensive mentality is really something that people can identify with. You know, by the way, like, this is a place that loves people who love it, right? Like, if you are like willing to commit to Portland and like choose Portland, like, people will rock with you. Like, Portlanders, not for nothing, Chauncey Billups chose to rock with Portland. Like, he chose to like stay here when he could have had some other options. And I think under normal circumstances, for somebody who hadn't already like left such a poor taste in the mouths of like so many people, that would be something that would be celebrated, because
Absolutely.
the idea that Chauncey Billups re-upped here rather than look for greener pastures is the sort of thing that like really resonates here. And so if there is a little bit of success in the Blazers' future, I do think that will become part of the story. If Chauncey continues to grow as a coach and takes a step forward, the fact that he said, I want to continue to build as a coach in Portland and not go try to do it, with Kevin Durant in Phoenix or whatever, I think could become part of this story that people are not really thinking of or talking about right now.
Yeah, it's a very interesting fork in the road that they're at, to say the least, which is literally, when have the Blazers not been at a fork in the road in the past? Well, really, like 3 years since I've been here. That's like Blazers, the fork in the road. They just keep They just keep like making baby steps towards the next fork.
It's funny. I feel like I've written 3 or 4 times since I've been here, because and we've talked about this, but you and I both kind of had our homecomings back to the Portland market at the exact same time, summer of 2022. And I think that I have written probably 3 or 4 times since then that, like, this is going to be a big summer for Joe Cronin. We're going to learn a lot about Joe Cronin this summer. And I actually think we kind of have. I think the way that he handled the Damian Lillard trade told us a lot about how he operated. The way he has, the way he has handled some trade deadlines and some of the decisions that he's made. I think, not trading Robert Williams tells us a lot about him. I think that was a misstep, but like, not panicking on, some of these other guys, tells us something. So again, this summer, I think we're going to learn a lot about Joe Cronin, again.
I think the biggest thing we've learned is that he is an incredibly measured human being.
Yes.
And I think sometimes that's great. I.e., like, hello, the Damian Lillard trade. He could have easily just been like, all right, screw it. We're going to send you to Miami. And ultimately, I mean, I think it was he made the best decision for the franchise he could at that time, I think.
I agree. Tyler Hero is good at basketball, but I understand.
He doesn't fit with the timeline of this team, I feel like. But then also it's like, how many trade deadlines have we been through where it's been like, all right, the Blazers did nothing again. All right, they did nothing again. So it's
when you are the head of basketball operations for a team, or this is really like when you're the manager of anything, I guess, but you have to have an incredible belief in what you're doing, because there are going to be a lot of people who don't at any given time, whether you're Joe Cronin, whether you're Leon Rose in New York, who people have had lots to say about Leon Rose, and all of a sudden, where are the Knicks? Oh, they're a real contender in the East. This stuff can be cyclical, where once your process is proven right, you gain a lot more credibility. I think the problem for Joe has been that this has been, we're going into year 5
it's a slow burn
of him of him trying to really lay this groundwork. I would say that he's mostly laid the groundwork now. But like, it goes back to the same one thing, Brenna, and this is like where, every conversation comes back to this. Who are the Blazers building around? And I would probably argue that right now they're building around Chauncey, because they don't have a star.
Yep.
They don't quite know how they're going to get a star. So while they continue to arrange the deck so that they can get a star one way or the other, they are making Chauncey Billups the center of this franchise and giving him players who, play a way that is going to work for him, that is reflective of his identity and his style. The problem is you're building around somebody who a lot of people in your fan base don't believe in. And that is a choice. And I'm not saying it's the wrong choice. It just better bear fruit.
Yeah, it's, I appreciated him bringing up Giannis and Jokic as homegrown stars in his press conference, but there is nobody on this team that is Giannis or Jokic. So.
Well, the other one was he's like, oh, you look at these teams around the league that are, they've got, so many people. They've got so many guys. They're all playing for each other. OKC, Cleveland, Boston. Okay, OKC has Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's the MVP of the league. Yeah. Cleveland has Donovan Mitchell is a many-time All-Star, All-NBA player, as well as other several All-Star caliber players. Boston has Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Drew Holiday. Have I named a single player who Portland has anybody who could be at that level?
No, nobody holds a candle.
So it just is. It's not a great comp. I understood what he was saying. I'm not trying to totally throw water on it. Yes, the way they play and the number of options they have and the number of ways they can beat you, and that if Shai is off, they can beat you, and they do beat you with great suffocating defense. But I just, the fundamental truth remains: those teams have stars. Portland does not appear to have a star. Joe did say, that he wouldn't put a ceiling on any of these guys, and that he, wouldn't rule out the possibility that star is already here. And I would just say, who is it? Denny is awesome.
Yep.
Denny's awesome. And I wouldn't even rule out that Denny could become an all-star. But he feels like he would be the second all-star on a really good team.
Yeah.
Shaedon Sharpe is the best candidate because the talent is there. And he puts up great numbers in the second half of seasons. Obviously he's electrifying. Is he the foundational piece of your franchise that you're building a, winning team around? He hasn't shown that yet. And going into year 4, it's kind of time. So I would say next year's the year where you find that out. I mean, but again, he's still so young. What is he, 22?
Yeah.
23?
If that.
How old Shaedon Sharpe? He's a baby.
Yeah.
So it's we're making very significant judgments about somebody he's still 21. He's going to turn 22 next month. So we're still talking about somebody who would be, going into his senior year of college.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, you don't want to close the book too soon, but you also expect, you expect to have a better feel for what these guys are ultimately going to be by now.
Yeah. Well, I think that we've exhausted the Blazers.
Brenna, speaking of teams that play at the Moda Center, you and I both found ourselves at the Nike Hoop Summit last weekend. The stars were out, of course, to see the Boozer twins and Carmelo Anthony's son and AJ DeBanza, who's going to BYU and making more money than, half the Trailblazers. But you and I think, had a greater focus on the game that was played earlier in the day, the women's game, featuring Clackamas High's own Jasmine Jazzy Davidson. And I'm not going to say that was Jazzy's best game. She wasn't even at her best. She shot 7 of 18 from the field, whatever. Yeah. But
she had a pretty okay first 3 quarters, and then the final quarter she really turned it on.
And she was the best player on the floor, especially in the fourth quarter. She led the Team USA in scoring. She had, I want to say it was did she have 17, 6, and 6, 18, 6, and 6? But then, 2 blocks, 2 steals.
17, 7, and 6.
Okay. She was great. And a couple days later, what happens? ESPN updates their class of 2025 rankings. And guess who the new number 1 is?
I think I think
That's
we
right.
can
If you
fill in
guessed
the blank.
Jazzy Davidson, you are correct. Give yourselves a round of applause, audience. Just very cool for Jazzy, who was the number 1 ranked player in the class of 2025 as a sophomore, and then dipped a little bit. But I mean, if you watched the McDonald's All-American game, if you then watched the Hoop Summit, she really was the best player on the floor in both. I mean, the way she plays the game, the smoothness of her game,
Cerebral.
her ability to take over, is just really impressive. I mean, she's got the 3-pointer going. Great playmaker, great facilitator, great footwork. I'm excited to see what she does at USC. And one thing I did write about is, SC, despite being the number 1 team in the country and, a juggernaut this year, has some questions going into next season. They lost a couple of guards.
Questions.
They've lost guards from that backcourt to the transfer portal. Juju Watkins probably misses the entire next season with
I would be stunned if she's back.
ACL injury. There is a real opportunity for Jazzy to kind of get off to be a star at USC from day one, which is exciting to think about. If that she might step in and be one of their most important players right away, which is she doesn't have the cover of, well, Juju's playing. Like, with no Juju, like, it could be the Jazzy show really early on.
Yeah. One of the things that her head coach said during the press conference is that she's got to get meaner.
Mm-hmm.
And I do agree with that. Like, but also, by the way, we saw, you weren't there, but we saw her get a little feist in the state semis. It got contentious out there between Clackamas and Jefferson in that state semifinal game, to say the least. So, she has it in her. But I think that, it's going to have to get to another level at this next level in order for her to really keep up. But, I saw it. I saw it come out. And so I know it's in there. I know the sass is in there. But yeah, that's the biggest thing I think she needs to, kind of develop going into the next level, with the fact that it's time to hit the weight room, the weight room. And then, she's got to develop a little bit of a
meaner streak.
Attitude is not the right word, because that comes off wrong, but just, like a swag out there,
Yeah.
And I get it. That's hard as a female to do sometimes, because I think that you're always taught to try to be like nice to people and that sort of thing. And I get it. And that's totally Jazzy. Like, she's just one of those people that, at least, in our dealings with her, is just a very, very nice human being. And sometimes you got to develop a little bit of a swag once you get to that next level. So I'm excited to kind of watch that. See how that progresses, because I got a little taste of it. So I'm ready for more.
You have swag, Brenna Greene. So Jazzy should take a page from your book. Did you have the same experience I had this week? And maybe it was the combination of going from, obviously, the women's Final Four a week ago, or 2 weeks ago now, to, the Hoop Summit and seeing kind of the next wave of women's basketball stars, to the WNBA draft on Monday. But it really got the wheels turning in my dome about the fact, hey, next year, WNBA draft, who's going to have a pick? The Portland TBDs, the to be determines, will have a pick in next year's WNBA draft. And hey, maybe in a few years, maybe Jazzy Davidson could be playing for the TBDs.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of starting to feel real.
It is starting to feel real.
That, like, the WNBA is coming to Portland, and that it's starting to kind of take shape in my mind, right? It's not taking shape in the sense of, like, they haven't built out, like, their operations staff yet. Team doesn't have a name, but they are breaking ground next week on.
I was going to say, we have the groundbreaking ceremony next week.
The shared Thorns and WNBA team facility. It's only going to keep getting ratcheted up more and more and more. I don't know when they're going to announce this team name, but, like, concurrent with the start of the WNBA season would make a lot of sense to me. it's just kind of fun. Like I found myself like I've got it right here. I was perusing a WNBA 2026, like the way too early mock draft for 2026. Like, oh, who could come to Portland? So it's kind of fun. And like you start thinking about, okay, well, unless they trade up, Portland will be kind of in the probably 6 or 7 range, right? Because the teams that don't make the playoffs are in the lottery. There's gonna be one more team in the league because of the Valkyries, so there'll be 5. So I think 6 and 7 will be Toronto and Portland in the draft. So it's like, who could be in that range? Well, there's a couple of international players, but like Kiki Rice, Chloe Kitts, AZ Fudd, like you're kind of in that range, and like those are all like fun players who would be really fun to see start their careers in Portland. And and who knows, right? It could be any host of other people. But just the idea that the wheels are turning in that way about the WNBA locally, it was a little bit of a mental transition for me because it's, it's starting to feel real.
Sean and I have had a lot of discussions that if the team is not good in the first year, which it probably won't be because most expansion teams are not good in their first year,
they could draft Juju. Awesome.
Juju, baby. We're waiting for 2027. That would just be absolutely massive, huge, game changer in Portland. The biggest star that has been here since Damian Lillard, bar none.
Well, unless you subscribe to the ultimate conspiracy theory.
Oh boy.
I don't know if it's conspiracy, but like projection that who's a free agent in 2026.
Oh yes, Sabrina.
I have a really hard time believing that Sabrina would leave New York and sign as a free agent in Portland.
Unless things just came crashing down in New York.
But it would be tremendous. And by the way, like, the Bethals, obviously we're not here for Sabrina madness. What do we Sabrina sanity? Like, what did we Sabrina sanity? And nor was I, for that matter.
Yeah.
But
really, you weren't?
Yeah, I know. But Sabrina.
Oh my gosh.
But it would make a lot of sense that on your WNBA team vision board, the number one thing would be all out blitz to try to pry Sabrina from New York and to sign her as a free agent for whatever dollar figure you are allowed to, blow the roof off of the entire thing. There could be no bigger splash that they could make than to sign Sabrina in year 1.
I'll say that Sabrina posted a photo dump on Instagram yesterday, and it was heavily Oregon themed. Like, heavily Ducks themed. I mean, every other thing had something to do with the University of Oregon. So every other picture was like the picture of a duck statue or a picture of like University of Oregon themed cake pops for her and Hronis. Like, it was, yeah. So there's still quite a connection to this state here, but let's see how things go before we really go down that road. But
would you like me to take my conspiracy theory one step further?
I'm here for Conspiracy Corner. Let's do it.
So that I do a mostly weekly video series called the Oram Forum.
Mm-hmm.
You can find it on Instagram and TikTok. And the one I did last week on the Blazers, I did bring up the fact, and I think I've talked about it on the podcast too, that in the NBA, Damian Lillard will have a player option going into the 26-27 season. Okay? The Portland Trailblazers, as we've just mentioned, could have a lot of cap space in the 26-27 season. And I said Portland's not the kind of place that's ever attracted free agents, so you can basically disabuse yourself of the idea that they might sign a big-time free agent. But the idea that Damian Lillard, rather than make $60 million on an expiring deal in 26-27, might want to opt out of that and sign a, 3-year, $150 million contract to come back to the Portland Trailblazers and maybe to buy a minority stake in the WNBA team from the Bethals, who, if you look at the way they modeled the ownership of the Thorns,
Yes.
will almost surely be bringing in other investors on the WNBA side. And we know Dame was interested in the WNBA because he was actually part of the other ownership group that was trying to bring a team to Portland.
Mm-hmm.
Does Sabrina sign with Portland in the WNBA? Dame buys into Portland at the WNBA. Dame comes back in free agency, and Sabrina and Dame run this town.
Well, that would be something. That would really be something. That would be like the biggest news day ever in the or news week, whatever you want to call it.
Well, so it wouldn't all happen at once because obviously WNBA free agency is, in the winter,
fall
winter, and NBA free agency wouldn't be until the next July.
Yeah.
Unless Milwaukee understands that the only thing Dame wants to do is come back to Portland, and Giannis will have already signaled that he's leaving anyway.
I love this fairy tale you're writing.
So then Milwaukee trades Dame to Portland for all the Blazers, stuff that they don't want anymore, which would be DeAndre Ayton and Anthony Simons. So you're basically just swapping expiring salary for expiring salary. The Blazers give the Bucks maybe their pick back with some protections, or some of the other stuff, because they have the Bucks picks basically forever, and they get Dame back and then sign him to an extension. Now, I would just like to be clear.
It's not a good idea.
I don't think it's a good idea at all. I don't think it's a good idea at all.
It's awful.
I do not think that you want to pin your hopes on trading for 36-year-old Damian Lillard to come in and save you again. But I'm sure every Blazers fan has fantasized to some degree about if Dame had players like Denny, Tumani, a more mature Shaedon Sharpe around him, what that could look like. Donovan Clingan, Robert Williams III. So I don't know. It's the offseason. It's a long offseason that the Blazers have had. I mean, it's been so long since we've had real basketball to talk about that I'm just in the delirious sludge of offseason theorizing.
You really are going for it here. And as much as I enjoy the fantasy,
and then Dame buys the Blazers from Jody Allen. He puts together an investor group, retires, buys the team.
Wow.
And I don't know, just want to see how far I could take it.
That would, yeah, okay. All right. Well, I like I said, I appreciate the fantasizing, but I do not see all that happening. But it's fun to dream about.
Brenna, Oregon State has their spring game this Saturday. It's been a long year for the Beavers. A lot of ups and downs, tough sledding in the sort of pseudo Mountain West slate they played. You have issues at quarterback, doesn't go as well as you would have hoped with Giovanni McCoy. And then they bring in Malik Murphy from Duke on what is believed to be a pretty significant NIL deal, which is a huge win for the Beavs. I know it's spring football, but I do want one thing that you think that you would be looking for in Saturday's spring game from Oregon State.
Yeah, I mean, you just hit the nail on the head. Competent quarterback play. I'm so done with the maybe we have a quarterback narrative at Oregon State that has been going on ever since we have both been here. Because it's always, we might have a quarterback. And, then the one year where it was obviously, DJ was DJ, but we all noticed the trail off towards the end of the year. And then it kind of became maybe we have a quarterback again with both him and Aiden Childs. And then Aiden Childs leaves.
Yeah.
So it's just been a weird story with that position, and I am just ready for some competent quarterback play. Okay? So all I just want to see is someone who is able to run the offense, maybe a few like 20-yard throws. Oh, I'll be happy. I'll be a happy camper. We've had a few moments. I mean, Aiden Childs had that moment in a spring game a few years ago where it was like, oh,
pretty ball.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that we have one or two of those, and that's all I can really ask for right now.
So I would like to say that I think I'm pulling up the schedule real quick. I think the Beavers are going to be pretty good next year.
Okay.
I don't know what that means, given, kind of like, I mean, I don't think they're going to be able to run the table and threaten for the playoff necessarily. But I mean, what was Washington State at? Was Washington State was at one loss and was sort of in the playoff mix for kind of into November? Like, I think that could conceivably be Oregon State next year, because when you look at them on the offensive side of the ball, I believe in that offense, and I think that obviously there's going to be more to work with offensively with Malik Murphy. Malik Murphy has comes in with some real credibility. The receivers are still pretty. I mean, the receiving core is pretty darn good when you consider that Trent Walker, kind of out of nowhere, Trent Walker burst onto the scene last year.
Mm-hmm.
Darius Clemens is back. Taz Reddix made some big catches for them last year, and then they also have. Sorry, I had the depth chart here because I didn't want to forget anybody.
Zach Card.
Well, they have Zach Card, but Jeremiah Noga, who's really good. So, I think that I think they're gonna benefit from having Malik Murphy tossing them the ball. I think that's a pretty good trio right there. And we named a couple others as well. Anthony Hankerson, had real issues holding onto the ball last year, but pretty reliable.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have the guy who was a freshman last year coming on too, to be to be kind of in that rotation. Allah. So I think, I just think there's a lot to like offensively. Bigger questions on the defense, especially with Trent Bray taking over the defense,
mm-hmm.
And how that's going to work, and a lot of pieces that have turned over there. But so maybe my biggest question is how the defense looks, because if Oregon State's defense looks more or less like an Oregon State defense, I think the Beavers are going to be pretty good, because when you look at their schedule, and we'll do this probably 15 times between now and next year, they have Cal in Corvallis to open the season. Then they have Fresno State in Corvallis. I mean, those are both kind of coin flip type games, but I think that those both could very conceivably be Oregon State wins. They go to Texas Tech. I don't think Texas Tech is very good. They go to Oregon. I'm just assuming that's an L. And then Houston, Appalachian State, Wake Forest, FCS Lafayette, Washington State, Sam Houston, Tulsa, Washington State. There is a world where that is four and
they should
1.
Be going to a bowl game next year.
4-1 going to App State on October 4th. That'd be a really fun game if they're 4-1 going to play App State in Boone, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
But in order to do that, you would have had to beat Fresno State, Texas Tech, and Cal, which maybe is a tall order. But
yeah,
I just think they're going to be pretty good. I think that they've got a lot returning on the offensive side of the ball. And, if you extend the ultimate benefit of the doubt to Trent Bray, we know what his defenses look like. We know that if there's one thing Trent Bray can do, it is succeed as a defensive coordinator. Now, he's never had to do it while wearing, the additional hat of being the head coach, but that is what he does. So, if you assume that he will hit the defense looking somewhat like a Trent Bray defense, why wouldn't they be pretty good, especially against that schedule?
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. And and if we see a solid defense on Sunday, that might mean we don't see as much solid quarterback play. So who knows?
Yeah. And then next week we have.
I'll just say this. Can I just say one more thing?
Yeah.
OSU has got to make this spring game bigger. They've got to put more resources into it, as we've discussed, and I hope we see that on Saturday. I don't know if we're going to see it or not. But
I'm very much on the record on this subject, so I'll just refer listeners to my past coverage of this subject. But I agree, and I hope that the Beavers need wins, right? The Beavers need positive vibes among the fan base, and that's just a university wide thing. And having a high profile transfer quarterback, Beaver fans should go see their team. Beaver fans should want to go see their team. And so I think that, from a roster standpoint, there's a lot to be interested in and to want to go check out.
We'll see if that translates. I have a sneaky suspicion that we're going to be left in the same spot we were left last year, which was, well, that wasn't that exciting.
Not
I hope
me.
I'm proven wrong.
I won't be in the same spot as last year because I will be at my son's T-ball game. So if you need me on Saturday, have a conflict, won't be able to make it to Corvallis. So Brenna, please report back.
Will do.
But I will be at Timbers Saturday night because the Timbers have a big one against LAFC at Providence Park. Timbers are unbeaten in their last 5 and maybe have something cooking under Phil Neville in year 2. So maybe I'll have a report from the Timbers game next week when we reconvene. We
will report from our respective locales.
I like that very much. Okay,
yes.
Thank you so much, Brenna. Greene, Coin 6, Channel 6 in the Portland metro area and surrounding region. Really appreciate your time on this fine, sunny morning.
Love it.
And
we deserve this.
No kidding. I sat outside this morning and read a book and drank my coffee. It was delightful.
I saw that on Instagram. Congratulations.
Thank you. And by the way, I will just tell anybody who's looking for their next great read. It's a few years old now, so you may have already seen it. But The Library Book by Susan Orlean. Should we start having Bill's Book Corner where I just recommend a book of the week? Sure, why not? Okay.
I will not have any. I don't remember the last time I read a book because I am uncultured swine. So there you go. So you enjoy that corner if you'd like to do that.
I read the final few pages today, and it brought me joy. So cheers to Susan Orlean, one of the great narrative writers of our time. Thank you for listening to the Oregonian Sports Podcast. I'm Bill Oram, Brenna Greene. Thank you. And we'll be back next week to tell you all about the Oregon State spring game and to preview the big spring game between the Oregon Ducks and the Oregon Ducks.